She gave away the last thing she had, and nobody saw it happen. The rain was the kind that makes Montgomery feel underwater, heavy, indifferent, washing the streets clean of everything that couldn't hold on. Out in it, hands extended, the bread passed between them. The old woman's fingers were shaking so badly she could barely close them around it. She knew the feeling. That was all. Then the black cars came. The men who stepped out moved through the downpour without hurrying, the specific unhurriedness of people who have never once needed to run from anything, and the night stopped belonging to her, quietly, the way most things she'd ever had just quietly stopped. If you've ever given something away when you had nothing left to spare and never quite understood why, you're in the right place. Stay with this one. Subscribe so you don't lose it. The woman had been standing in the rain for a long time before Donna noticed her. Not the clothes that were wrong first, though they were wrong, silk gone translucent in the wet, shoes with no business being on pavement in weather like this. What was wrong was the stillness. Everyone else on the underpass service road was moving, heads down, collars up, getting somewhere. The old woman was not getting anywhere. Face turned up to the rain, lips moving, and the water ran into her eyes, and she was not blinking. 30 seconds of watching from beneath the overpass. Then the blanket was gathered up, the cornbread tucked under one arm, and Donna went. Practical, she told herself. The woman would fall into traffic or be found by someone worse than the rain. Nothing to do with the way those lips were moving, the same two words, over and over, though she couldn't hear them, yet over the water, hitting concrete above. She heard them when she got close.
He's gone. He's gone.
Donna's jaw tightened. She kept moving. Hey. A touch on the woman's arm, and no startle, no pull, just a turn, and eyes that were not focusing on anything in this street, this city, this year. Up close, she was striking in the way that old photographs are striking. Bone structure from another era, skin so pale it had a quality more like stone than flesh. You can't stay out here. Come on. The woman let herself be moved. That was the second wrong thing. Completely, weightlessly compliant, following the hand on her elbow with the passivity of someone whose body was present and whose mind had gone several counties away. Down the slope, bracing when she stumbled, ducking under the overpass into the dry nook between two support columns where Donna had been sleeping since August. The Hessian sacks were still there, the tarp, the second pair of socks drying on the rebar. She sat the woman down and crouched in front of her. You cold? No answer. The lips still moving. The cornbread came unwrapped. Half a loaf, gone slightly stiff at the edges, still the best thing managed all week, and held out. The woman's eyes dropped to it and stayed there a long moment. Then, slowly, she shook her head. Something about that small refusal made Donna's throat close. It's good, she said. Just eat some. The woman looked up. Really looked, for the first time, eyes coming back from wherever they'd been.
Dark.
Very dark. Then, without warning, she started to cry. Not the quiet kind. The kind that sounds like it's been waiting, low and broken and so raw that a hand moved on instinct, landing on the woman's knee, pressing down like something could be held together that was already past holding.
Hey.
You're out of the rain. He's gone, the woman whispered. I can't feel him. I could always feel him, and now there's nothing, there's just. Her hand pressed to her sternum, fingers curling inward like she was trying to reach something through bone. Donna knew the feeling, or a version of it, the absence that has a shape, the place where something used to be, that now just echoes. I know, she said. Not useful.
Said it anyway.
That was when the old woman's eyes changed. Between 1 second and the next, the dark irises filmed over with something deep and red, the color of old garnets, and the light behind them was wrong in a way that couldn't be explained and wouldn't be. Already pulling back, weight shifting to the balls of her feet, when the woman's hand closed around her wrist. Not an old woman's grip. You're warm, the woman said. Her voice had changed, still grief-wrecked, still broken, but underneath it something old and certain had surfaced. "What is your name?"
Donna's mouth was dry.
"Donna." The woman's head tilted. The red light in her eyes pulsed once, slowly. "Donna," said like something being committed to a place deeper than memory. "You gave me your bread. You can let go of my wrist."
She did.
Immediately, which was somehow more unsettling. The engines came before the headlights. 3 black SUVs moving in convoy down the service road, too slow, searching rather than passing. Donna got to her feet and put herself between the woman and the opening of the nook. Her heart was doing something unhelpful. Focus on the cornbread. The vehicle stopped. Doors opened. The men who stepped out wore dark suits in a rainstorm at midnight and found nothing remarkable in this. They fanned out with the practiced spacing of people who did this regularly, flashlight beams cutting across the concrete. One beam landed on the nook. The man holding it went absolutely still. Then he dropped to one knee, not the slow, uncertain kind, but fast like his legs had made the decision before he did. "Your Grace."
His voice had gone thin.
"We have been searching for 3 hours." Donna turned around. The woman was sitting upright on the hessian sack, soaked silk and grief and red-lit eyes, watching the kneeling man with complete serenity. "I know," she said. More of them were kneeling now along the service road, and the one who was not, standing at the overpass edge with hands in his coat pockets, calculating rather than reacting, was not in a suit. All black, tall in a way registered as a physical fact before anything else about him. His eyes found her immediately. Not the woman. Her. 3 seconds of holding that gaze, long enough to feel the specific discomfort of being assessed by someone very good at it, and then he crossed the distance without hurry and stood at the mouth of the nook and looked past her at the woman on the sacking. "Selah."
Low. Precise.
"Are you hurt?"
No.
The woman, Selah, tilted her head toward Donna. "She gave me her bread." His eyes moved back. The half-loaf came up reflexively, which was absurd, but the arms were doing things independently, and they couldn't be stopped.
He looked at it.
Then at her face. The rain still coming down, the cornbread going soft, standing in front of someone who made every man within 30 feet kneel in a storm drain. The arm lowered.
"She needed it," Donna said.
That's all. Something moved through his expression. Not warmth exactly. It didn't have the texture of warmth. More like recognition. The quiet kind that doesn't announce itself, just updates something in the background and moves on. "Get in the car," he said. "I'm not. Selah will not leave without you." Said without hardness, which was worse than if he'd been hard about it. "So, you're coming." A look back at Selah, who was watching with those deep-lit eyes and the faintest trace of something almost like a smile. She knew the feeling. That was the problem. The exact feeling of someone deciding your fate was no longer yours to determine. She got in the car. The estate gates were iron, twice her height, and they did not open so much as recede. Slow, certain, the movement of things that have never needed to hurry. Coming through the cracked window, cut grass and old stone, and something underneath both that had no name. Straight ahead, not at the man beside her. Not at Selah, asleep against the window with her hand resting over her heart. The road unspooling through the gates, and the counting that always came in new places. Exits, 2. Staff, 7 visible, probably more on overnight. The king, one decision already made without her.
The boy in the doorway.
She was not going back to the overpass. She'd known it the same way she'd known to walk toward the woman in the rain. Not because it was safe, not because it made sense, but because something had already been decided before she reached the part where she got a vote. The first thing she clocked was the staff. Not the house, though the house deserved attention. All dark wood and high ceilings and the smell of a building that had been maintained rather than renovated. Original bones intact beneath everything. The house would keep. First came the staff count, because staff meant structure, structure meant rules, and rules meant the places where a person either learned to be useful or got removed. 7 visible in the first 4 minutes. moving with the coordinated quiet of people who had never needed to be told what the other person was about to need. That kind of staff took decades to build. Whatever this place was, it had been this place for a long time. A woman named Orla took her from the car. No name asked. Just, this way, and a direction, and Donna followed because the alternative was standing in a driveway at midnight in wet clothes, and she had enough practice with bad options to know when to defer one. The bathroom was at the end of a long corridor on the second floor. Orla set towels on a chair, thick enough that the first instinct was to count them, then the reminder that this was not a house where you counted towels, and left without instruction.
The door got locked.
Tried twice. A moment at the mirror longer than intended, then away. Quick in the bath. No letting herself enjoy it, which took more discipline than expected. The clothes Orla brought were simple, dark trousers, a cream-colored top softer than anything Donna owned, flat shoes that fit as if someone had checked rather than guessed. Standing in them in the corridor, working out what that meant. Someone had been thorough. Thorough was worth paying attention to. The room Orla brought her to on the ground floor had not needed to be decorated because nothing in it had ever been replaced. Dark, heavy furniture, old in the specific way that money makes things old. Cared for, not worn. Every surface held something with a history. Eyes kept moving. Perhaps 15 people in the room. Some seated, some at the walls. All of them turned when she entered with the quality of attention that had nothing casual in it. Hands loose at her sides. Caius was near the fireplace. The same as in the rain, composed in the way of someone who had never had to practice composure. He waited until she had crossed the room before speaking, which said something about how long he had been in the habit of making people come to him. "You helped Selah," he said. "She needed help." Yes. That quick, thorough calculation again, the kind that filed things rather than admired them. "You're 14. Yes. You have nowhere to go." Her jaw tightened. Face kept still. "I manage."
You did, he said.
Past tense. "As of tonight, you are my ward. You'll live here, be schooled here, have what you need. In return, you will learn how this house runs, and you will be useful to it." The room was very quiet. The word ward, the specific way it had no warmth in it, a category rather than a choice. Being filed. She knew how that felt, and she knew it wasn't the worst thing that had ever happened to her, so she held still and let it happen. "All right," she said. That was when the room's attention shifted, a slight collective adjustment, the way a group moves when someone they track makes a move. She turned. Leaning in the doorway, arms crossed, with the look of someone who had arrived precisely late enough to have missed nothing important. Dark hair. Pale the way all of them were pale, that coolness beneath the skin. His eyes moved over her with the speed of someone who had already formed an opinion and was confirming it. "A stray," he said. Not loud. He didn't need loud. "You've brought home a stray, father." A few quiet sounds from the room. Not quite laughter. Donna looked at him steadily. Called worse by people with actual leverage. This one was standing in a doorway at midnight making a small performance of himself, and she was tired and still slightly damp and in no mood to pretend she didn't notice the performance. She turned back to Caius. "Does the stray get a room?" she asked. One beat of silence. Something moved through Caius's expression, controlled, almost invisible, but there. Not quite satisfaction. Something that filed her again. Differently this time. "Orla," he said. The boy in the doorway watched her cross the room. She did not look at him. Aware, in the specific way of something chosen not to look at, that he did not look away. The room at the end of the east corridor, third floor. A window facing the garden. A bed with fur posts. Linen that smelled like cedar. Orla left a glass of water on the nightstand and closed the door without a word. Sat on the edge of the bed. Then back, staring at the ceiling. The plaster up there had a pattern, small repeating shapes, vines or something like vines, running in rows. The counting that always came. Exits, 2, door, and window. Staff, 7 visible, more on overnight. The king, one decision made without her.
The boy in the doorway.
Osher. She hadn't heard anyone say his name.
She didn't know it yet.
She would learn it the way she learned everything here, by watching, staying quiet, making herself the kind of person it didn't occur to anyone to remove. She was thinking that she had been given things before and had them recalled once she stopped being worth the investment. This was a bigger thing than most, which meant the withdrawal would be bigger too. She would need to be very, very careful. She fell asleep with the lamp on. She hadn't meant to. She woke at 3 a.m. to a sound she couldn't place, low, almost below hearing, coming through the wall from somewhere deeper in the house. Lay perfectly still. Listened. One voice, saying the same thing over and over in the cadence of someone who had forgotten they were speaking aloud.
He's gone. He's gone. Selah.
The blanket came up to her chin. Eyes on the ceiling. She did not go back to sleep for a long time. If you're still here, you already know this story has its hooks in you.
Subscribe.
What comes next with the boy in the doorway is the part the algorithm won't remind you about. Make sure you find it. A month in, the house's hours had been learned the way you learn a person's moods, not by being told, but by paying attention until the patterns became involuntary. The east corridor emptied after 10. The kitchen was safe between 2 and 4 in the morning. The ground floor receiving room went cold around 8 in the evening regardless of season. Some failure in the old radiator nobody had fixed, which meant anyone who lingered past that hour was there for a reason that had nothing to do with comfort. All of it catalogued quietly, continuously, without letting anyone see it being done. Osher had not been spoken to since the first night. Not avoidance. She told herself this regularly. Their paths simply didn't cross with frequency, and when they did, the room always arranged itself so that something was between them, and there was no particular interest in changing that arrangement. She was thinking about this, about how not avoidance it was, when Orla appeared at her door on a Thursday evening with a dress over one arm and the look of someone delivering information, not requesting input. There's a formal reception tonight. Mr. Caius would like you present. The dress was charcoal, simple, long-sleeved. Donna took it without comment. The formal hall, high ceilings, a floor polished so long it had developed the quality of glass rather than wood, photographs on the walls from decades she didn't want to calculate. 30 guests moving through conversation that had no visible content from the outside. Position taken near the eastern wall, full room visible, and Caius located within 4 seconds. He was watching her, not obviously, the way that makes a person feel filed rather than seen. 3 observations in. The man near the window too interested in the woman he was pretending not to watch. The 2 near the fireplace stopped on an odd beat that hadn't resumed when Caius appeared at her elbow. I'd like you to partner with Osher for the formal opening, he said. Very still on the inside. On the outside, a nod. Of course, she said. She hated that she said of course. Osher was already at the edge of the floor when she crossed to him. He looked at her the way he always looked at her. That quick, assessing glance that landed and moved on, like she was a detail already accounted for. His hand came out. She took it. Cool and dry, and the quality of his stillness different up close. Not the stillness of someone at rest, but of something that had simply stopped making sound. The music started. They moved. Precise. She focused on matching him, on the count, on not looking at the front of his collar. 2 full turns of the floor before it came. The specific drag at her heel, the slight catch of fabric, the full weight of her skirt pulling against her step. She stumbled, caught herself. Her face went warm. Careful, Osher said. Pleasantly. The pleasantness was the worst part. Filed it. Waited. 20 seconds later, on his next backward step, her foot shifted 2 inches to the left. The water glass on the low table at the floor's edge caught the back of his heel clean. Not a spill. A topple, slow, thorough, audible. He stopped. She kept her expression attentive and concerned. Careful, she said. His eyes came to hers. For one full second, he looked without the assessment, without the filing, just looked, the way you look at something that has surprised you before you decide what to do about the surprise. Caius's voice came from behind them. Quiet. Final. Osher.
Donna.
Together, please. Both turned. His face gave nothing. A gesture toward the floor. They stepped back toward each other. This time was different, because now the distance was smaller. Caius had placed them with the deliberateness of a man arranging pieces, and close enough to notice what had been registered from a distance and not named. Osher was not breathing. Not paused. Simply not. His chest did not move. The hand holding hers still and cool, and absent of any pulse she could feel. She knew this. Had known since the first night what this house was, what its people were. Had simply not been standing close enough to feel the fact of it against her palm until now. She kept dancing. The music ran another 3 minutes. She counted. Selah was in the small sitting room off the corridor afterward, the one with the lamp that sat too low and the chair that faced the garden. Awake, which was not always the case in the evenings. You did well, Selah said, without looking up from her hands. Donna sat across from her. I spilled his water glass. I know. I watched. A pause. You did well. No answer to that. The garden through the dark window, the shapes of the hedges against a sky gone the particular blue that comes just before all the light leaves it. He's not easy, she said, finally. Not a complaint. An observation that hadn't been meant to come out loud. Selah was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice had the quality of something held for a while and decided to put down. The ones who go coldest, she said, go coldest because they have to. Donna looked at her, still watching her hands. The lamp put a line of gold along her cheek. She looked like someone who had learned everything at a cost she still carried, and had made peace with that without pretending the cost hadn't been real. What does that mean?
Donna asked.
It means what it means. No pressing. Another minute in the low light, Selah not speaking. The garden going fully dark outside. Walking back to her room, something in her chest had a quality she did not examine. Not warmth exactly. The memory of it, the shape of where warmth had been, and the faint, disorienting awareness that the shape was still there.
She was not used to that.
Face washed. Changed out of the charcoal dress. Into bed. On her back, the ceiling with its vine patterns staring down. She was not, she told herself, thinking about what Selah had said. She went to sleep thinking about it. 8 years does something to a person's posture. Not in the way of age, though that too, but in the way of a skill practiced until it stops being conscious. Through the formal hall now the way water moves through a known channel. Without hesitation, without visible effort, finding the low points and pressure points with the ease of someone who had mapped them so many times the map had become part of her body. Which visiting nobles were performing comfort they didn't feel. Which man near the drinks table had been in conversation with the same 2 people for 40 minutes because he was waiting for a third who was late, and the lateness meant something. Filed and moved on. Stopped beside Caius at the precise moment he needed her. The delegation from Baton Rouge, she murmured. The older one has been watching the east doors since he arrived. Whatever he came to discuss, he didn't bring it in through the front. Caius made no visible response. 3 minutes later he excused himself and moved east. This was what she was now. Specifically, irreplaceably useful, the kind that made removal costly rather than convenient. She told herself this was enough. She was very good at telling herself things. The man named Prentice found her for the 3rd time near the windows at the room's far end. Visiting from one of the northern courts, pleasant in the way men are pleasant when they have decided they want something and haven't been told no yet. A habit of positioning himself just close enough that moving away required intent. You have a remarkable eye, he said. The pause of a word replaced by a more acceptable one. For someone outside the bloodlines.
Thank you, Donna said.
Watching the east corridor. I'd be interested in knowing how you came to be here. It's not a common arrangement. No, she agreed. Not going to tell him. Scanned left. Located Osher at the room center. In conversation with two men filed as alliance maintenance rather than threat, his back angled slightly away. Perhaps we could speak more privately at some point this evening, Prentice said. Perhaps, she said, which meant no, and turned to move. She didn't need to. Osher was already there. The distance from the room's center covered without appearing to hurry, a thing she had stopped remarking on years ago, and still noticed every time. He stopped beside Prentice with the specific quality of stillness that was not stillness at all. It was the moment before. She's busy, Osher said. For words. Pleasantly delivered. Prentice looked at him, completed a calculation quickly, and excused himself with a smile that didn't fully form. Donna waited until he was gone. I was handling it. I know. Already looking at the room again. Not at her. You'd have managed another 20 minutes before you said something he'd have had to report back. Her mouth opened. Closed. He wasn't wrong, which was the most irritating thing about him. He was frequently, specifically not wrong. Side by side looking at the room and not looking at each other, which was a thing they had perfected over 8 years into something that looked, from a distance, like professional courtesy. She was not thinking about the dancing lesson. She had not thought about it in a long time. Absolutely not thinking about it now. 20 minutes later, in the quiet corner near the portrait wall, she was watching the room's currents rearrange themselves post-Prentice when Osher materialized beside her again and set something on the narrow ledge at her elbow. A plate. Small. Peach cobbler from the kitchen, the specific kind with the brown sugar crust the cook made on Fridays, that Donna had mentioned exactly once, 8 months ago. In a conversation with Orla, she had not believed anyone else was in earshot of. He said nothing about it. He didn't look at her. Watching the room with the expression he always wore in public, that contained, carved-out absence of feeling, she had spent a year being certain was simple coldness, and the following 7 years being less certain about. She looked at the cobbler. She looked at the side of his face. He knew her order. Had known it for 8 months, said nothing, done nothing with the information until now, setting it in front of her without comment or expectation, the way you do for someone whose preferences you carry as a matter of course, as if the carrying requires no explanation. Her throat did something she ignored. She picked up the fork and ate. He stayed beside her, not speaking, until Caius's voice lifted from the room's center, and everything changed. If I could have your attention. The room organized itself the way it always did when Caius spoke, not from instruction but from habit, the long habit of a house that had been doing this for generations.
The fork went down.
Face arranged to attentive and pleasant. This gathering marks something I have looked forward to for some time. Standing at the room center with a woman clocked on arrival, visiting noble, northern affiliation, the kind of compose that comes from being very certain of one's position. The joining of 2 courts through the strongest bond available to us. Very still. My son, Osher, and the Lady Vale of the Heron line. The room applauded. Not a loud sound. The specific applause of people who had expected this and were expressing the appropriate response. Warm, measured, over in 15 seconds. Donna's hands came together twice before she stopped them. She did not look at Osher. She looked at the wall to the left of Caius's head and kept her face arranged and breathed at normal intervals and did not move until the applause finished and the room dissolved back into conversation. Then she looked. Osher was standing beside Vale, hands loose at his sides, face at the angle that gave nothing away. Vale said something to him. He nodded. His eyes moved to the room's far side, not to Donna, past her, the way you look at a wall. She picked up the plate, set it down again. The cobbler had gone slightly cold. She left it where it was and went to find Caius, because she was useful, because that was what she was here for, because the math she had been doing for 8 years had just recalculated and she needed the new numbers before she let herself think about anything else. The 3 months after the engagement announcement, Donna operated on a kind of professional autopilot she recognized from her first weeks at the estate, The state of doing everything correctly while registering almost none of it, the body executing the known motions while the mind stayed very quiet and did not examine what it was not examining. Useful. Present. She gathered what Caius needed and delivered it cleanly and did not think about the cobbler going cold on the ledge, or the way Osher's profile had looked standing next to Vale while the room applauded, or the specific arithmetic of what she had apparently been allowing herself to calculate in the background without noticing. A mistake had been made. Not a dramatic one. The quiet, private kind, where you let something accumulate in a room inside yourself and don't acknowledge it until the door opens and you see how full the room has gotten. She was dealing with it. The cousin's name was Riel. She had arrived with Vale's entourage 6 weeks after the announcement and sought Donna out with the particular friendliness of someone who is good at friendliness, warm without being effusive, interested without being intrusive. A laugh that arrived easily, opinions about things that didn't matter, and she made the estate feel, for the first time, like a place where Donna was known rather than observed. She had let herself like her. That was the mistake. The specific, precise mistake, not naive, not large, just a small door opened without checking what was on the other side. The gathering was informal by the estate standards, 40 people in the East Hall, Vale's political allies mixed with Caius's court, an evening designed to look like socializing and function like negotiation. 90 minutes of working the room, 3 observations worth passing to Caius, when Riel appeared at her side with a glass of wine and a smile. "You look like you're doing math," Riel said. "Always," Donna said. She took the wine. She should not have taken the wine. She took it because 3 months of easy conversation had made the gesture feel normal, and normal was what she'd been missing. Riel's voice, when it changed, did not change loudly. It changed the way a room temperature changes, registered in the body before the mind catches up. A drop you can't locate until you realize every surface has gone cold. "The thing about Donna," Riel said, and her voice had lifted just enough, precisely enough to carry to the nearest cluster of people, is that she has always known exactly where she stands. Turned to Donna with an expression of perfect sympathy. "Don't you, Donna? A ward. Not family. Not court. Just useful." The pause breathed. It's actually admirable to want something so plainly impossible and still be so dedicated. The room's nearest conversation stopped, the air on the back of her neck. She did not move. She had learned, in 14 years of being the person a room did not need to accommodate, how to hold very still while something moved through her, let it pass without letting it show. She held her wineglass.
She breathed.
"I appreciate your concern," she said. "Even. It's misdirected, but I appreciate it." Riel smiled. "I just think it's kinder to be clear. For everyone's sake." Her eyes moved briefly, 1 degree no more, toward the far end of the room where Osher was standing. Some attachments are better released before they become complicated. The room's silence had the texture of held breath. The wineglass set down on the nearest surface. Done carefully. She was thinking, with the part of her mind still operational, that she needed to walk away and find Caius. She was thinking this very clearly. She did not move. 1 tear. Just 1. She felt it before she could stop it, the quick, traitorous heat at the corner of her left eye, and she blinked it back, and it didn't matter because 2 people near the fireplace had already seen it. That was when Osher crossed the room. He did not hurry. He moved with the particular controlled speed she had only seen from him twice before, both times in circumstances that ended poorly for the other party. He stopped in front of Riel, and whatever was in his expression made her take a half step back without appearing to decide to. "Leave," he said. Not loudly. The room heard it. Riel's composure held 3 seconds. "Your Highness, I was only... You have 2 hours to be off this date," said the way you state a fact about weather. "I'd use them." The room made no sound at all. Riel left. Donna was staring at a point on the far wall, jaw tight, hands at her sides, running through the calculation of how many people had seen the tear and whether it was recoverable, when Asher's hand closed around her arm and she was moving. The corridor was dim, the east hall muffled behind the closed door. He released her arm. The two of them stood in the narrow quiet, and she could feel the cold of the wall at her back without having leaned against it yet. "You didn't have to do that," she said. "I know. It will make things worse. With Vale. With your father." "I know." She looked at him, closer than he usually stood. The thing she had been not examining for 3 months, and before that for 8 years, was very present in the small space between them, and she was tired, genuinely tired, in the specific way of someone who has been managing something heavy for a long time and whose arms are starting to fail. She knew the feeling. His hand came up. Slowly. The way you move toward something you're not certain will let you reach it. His fingers brushed her jaw, the lightest possible contact, and she felt it in her feet. She did not pull away. She should have pulled away. She told herself clearly that she should. She stood there. Then Caius's voice came through the door, not the words, just the voice, that low, precise instrument, and Asher's hand dropped. His face went still in the way she had spent 8 years watching, and 7 of those years beginning to understand. Not coldness. Its opposite. The face of someone putting something away very carefully, because the alternative is breaking it. He stepped back. She pressed her shoulders against the wall and looked at the ceiling. The corridor air smelled like old wood and something faintly floral from the hall beyond. Vale's perfume, she realized. The specific cruelty of that detail was almost funny. Asher opened the door. The sounds of the gathering came back. He did not look at her again before he went through. She stood in the corridor alone and counted to 10 and then counted to 10 again, and by the time she went back through the door her face was arranged and her hands were steady, and the place inside her chest where she had felt his fingers was already closing over like water, silent, complete, leaving nothing on the surface to show what had just gone under. 3 months. That was how long she had been in the West Montgomery house, and most of it had been spent learning what it felt like to stop being useful to anyone but herself. The house was rented, small, on a street where oak roots had buckled the sidewalk into something that looked like a raised scar. A kitchen that faced east and got the morning light. A back porch for the evenings when the neighborhood went quiet, and she had been almost, not peaceful, but something adjacent to it. Waiting out a feeling the way you wait out weather. The pull in her chest had started 3 weeks after she arrived. She had told herself it was grief. She had a history of telling herself things. She knew how to believe them long enough to get through the day, and she had been doing that, getting through the days, eating regularly, talking to the life she was carrying in the careful, quiet way of someone who has decided on a love they cannot yet afford to feel fully. She was protecting herself. She was protecting the wrong thing, and she knew it, and she kept doing it anyway because that is what you do when the right choice looks like freefall. She found him on the back porch on a Tuesday night, out to bring in the chair cushion before the rain started, and there he was in the kitchen light, on the floor, back against the railing, one arm braced against the boards like he was trying to remember how to hold his own weight. His face was wrong, not injured. Something internal, a fever working from the inside out, the veins at his throat faintly dark against that pale skin. She knew what she was looking at, had known since the night she stood in the rain outside an overpass and watched an old woman press her hand to her sternum and say, "I can't feel him anymore." Known it in the abstract, the way you know about gravity, present, constant, requiring no acknowledgement to function. She dropped to her knees in front of him. "How long?" she said. His eyes came to hers. Too dark, the pupils too wide, and underneath the fever something raw, the particular rawness of someone who has been looking for a long time and has stopped being certain they will find what they're looking for. Weeks. His voice unsteady in a way she had never heard from him. "I couldn't," he stopped. "Tried again. You were gone." Her hand against his face. He was burning. "You should have told me," she said. "Years ago. You should have told me." "I know. Your father." "I know." He caught her wrist. Not hard. The way you hold something you're afraid is about to leave. I renounced the claim 2 weeks ago. Before I knew where you were. I need you to know that it was before. She went very still.
The throne, she said.
It was what he used. To keep me where he wanted me. I am not interested in inheriting anything that came with you as a condition. The rain started. She could hear it in the oak leaves at the porch's edge, that soft accumulating sound Montgomery rain makes when it means to stay. She was composing measured sentences in her head, asking questions, protecting the careful arrangement she had built over 3 months. She leaned forward and pressed her forehead against his. His exhale was long and ragged. I know the feeling, she said. Said it to him once before, years ago, in a corridor with her face still wet. She had not known then what she was saying. She knew now. She kissed him. Not the way of something finally allowed. The way of something that had never needed permission, that had simply been waiting for her to stop arguing with it. He made a sound against her mouth that she would carry for the rest of her life. His arms came around her, and the fever heat of him was wrong and right at once, and the rain came down on the West Montgomery dark. The stillness came after. Inside, the back door closed against the rain, and she was sitting cross-legged on the floor with his head in her lap and her hand moving slowly through his hair, and the house was quiet in the way of a place that has been waiting for the right number of people to be in it. She told him about the child. Said it plainly, the way you say a true thing, not braced for impact, not softening the landing. There is a child. 3 months.
I've been talking to them.
He did not speak for a long moment. Then his hand came up and covered hers where it rested on her knee, and she felt through the bond, which was open now, fully open, the door she had been holding shut swinging wide, the weight of what moved through him. Not shock. Something older and more certain than shock. Recognition. She knew the feeling. The fever broke before morning. She sat with him through it, and when the darkness outside the windows started to go gray at the edges, she made coffee, and they sat at the kitchen table, and the light came in, and they did not talk about what came next yet because some mornings belong to themselves before they belong to the day. 3 days later, her phone rang. She did not recognize the number. She answered anyway because she had been waiting without knowing she was waiting, the way you wait for something you cannot name until you hear it. It's time to come home. Selah's voice, low and warm and certain. Both of you. Donna looked at Asher across the kitchen table. He had heard. He was watching her with an expression she was still learning. Open, uncalculated, the face he wore when no one who wanted something from him was watching. She thought about the word home, about what it had meant when she was 14, and what it meant now. Where's home? She asked. Not to Selah.
To him.
He reached across the table and turned her hand palm up. Wherever we decide it is, he said. She looked at his hand over hers. The morning light lay across the table between them, warm and plain and absolutely ordinary, the kind of thing you might not notice if you hadn't spent years counting the cost of ordinary things. She noticed. If this story found something in you that you didn't know you were carrying, there are others. Women in this city, in cities like this one, who gave something away and are still finding out what came back.
Subscribe.
Come back. You don't have to hold this feeling alone.